came home from work tonight, and I'm eating the beef stroganoff that was left over for me. My wife comes over to the table. I'm eating the beef stroganoff, and she pours herself a glass of sangria in a half a mason jar. It's the kind of cups that we have. It's not like a real mason jar. It just makes it look like one. And she fills it with ice. She fills the thing with sangria an inch from the top. And then she takes my bottle of water and she pours what appears to be an eye droplet full of water in there. And she says, water and sangria. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, it reminds me of kind of a gag that they do on Half in the Bag, where before they watch a really terrible movie, or to them, a really terrible movie, Mike, who's the lead on Half in the Bag, will pour like an entire bottle of gin into a cup and then a splash of water, and like, what are you doing? Like, I'm making a gin and tonic, which is basically like 99.9, alcohol, and then that little splash of water. Is like what she was doing. She drank about half of it and then gave the rest to me, and I'm like, I'm not drinking that. But I'm still sitting here looking at it as the ice proceeds to melt into the sangria. And I'm asking myself, really, what was the point of all of this? And you might be asking yourself, what the hell was the point of this story? The point is, this is the Metal Hammer of Doom. And it's 10:30 at night, and boy, am I tired. I am your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And joining me on time tonight, he made sure he got here just a little bit early. He's raring to go. This was his pick tonight. Here he is, folks, the most metalist of all. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Mr. Robert Cooper, how do you do?
I know how you feel with, like, working a 12-hour day. Fuck. Ugh. Yeah, my best buddy once told me, he's like, man, he's like, don't work and go to school. And I'm like, oh, it can't be that bad. I was like,
I imagine. We were talking about that at work the other day. And at this point, I am worthless. Like, if social work suddenly, like, if there was a law declared that you can no longer be a social worker, and at this point in my life, there's nothing else I could do besides maybe be a drug dealer, so I'd have to go back to school to learn something else, I would be useless. I would have to sign up for fucking disability insurance, or welfare. I am at almost 40 years old, I am a terrible student. I can't go through a work training without falling asleep. So I can only imagine what it's like to be you, Mr. Robert Cooper, who is so young, so vibrant, so vim, having to balance work and school. I remember those days, and I don't remember them fondly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst thing. I mean, hell, my job's, I'm not going to say it's easy. It's just, it went by really quick. For example, my stupid ass took 2.5 hours to put together a fucking display of a storage box, because it was asking me to do things like, screw into plastic with no power tools. That was wonderful. It was fun. But yeah, I was like, yeah, 12, what time are you working? 12 to 5. Well, what you doing after that? Class 6 to 9. Ooh. Yeah.
And then you had
like, oh boy,
school, right?
And
then you had to go to school, right? You had class?
Yeah, school was 6 to 9. So it's just like, yep, go to work, go to school, come home. Yeah, do chores, listen to metal. Before
the show started tonight, I actually tried to watch NXT, and as usual, I fell asleep sitting straight up. I was in and out of that show. All I know is, spoiler alert, Kevin Owens beat Finn Balor.
Yeah, I mean that was a pretty good match. It was a lot more less one-sided than I expected.
Yeah. So Robert, before we jump into tonight's review, I have an article from metalinjection.net. Excuse me. It says, streaming music now more profitable than physical sales of music for the first time ever. And I have a nice little pie chart here. According to the RIAA, digital downloads represented 37%, ringtones and ringback tones 1%, physical media, the kind that you tend to support, 32%, streaming 27%, and then synchronization 3%. And the article goes on to say, we've heard so much complaining about streaming music that if I were to link you to every single article we've ever done on it, you'd be here until next week. So with all the negativity surrounding it, streaming music is basically the antithesis of making money, right? Not according to a recent report published by the RIAA. According to the report, streaming made musicians a total of $1.87 billion last year, beating out CD copies by $20 million in revenue. This is the first time since the invention of profitable music streaming the medium has beaten out the physical CD format. Could this finally be the end of the scratchable disc, or was 2014 just a weird year? It's worth noting that physical sales as a whole beat streaming services percentage-wise, though the physical format as a whole dropped from 37% to 32%. Streaming went up 21% to 27%, so you can see the dissonance here. And for all of you hippies out there, for all of you hipster douchebags, the vinyl industry was worth $315 million and just as popular as it was in 1987. So what do you think of that?
It's not really a surprise. I think the people talking about how it's not good for the industry are, well, I mean, they're kind of right, kind of wrong. I mean, it probably made more money, but the thing is, it's very much I'm going to say a Reaganomical approach. Like, there's a lot at the top, and it does trickle down, but at the same time, a lot of those bands at the bottom aren't probably going to get the same amount that they would if it were basing things around physical sales. So, I mean, it's kind of a catch for me, too.
Well, I see your point, but I'll tell you, like, the album that we're reviewing tonight is a really good example of a situation where I listened to Enslaved in times on Spotify. I downloaded it, I streamed it, and they got a percentage of that stream, right? They got a percentage of money. From the $10 a month that I spend on Spotify, they get X amount from me streaming it. And that's more than they would have gotten from me if they were just putting out a physical CD. If they had to depend on me to just buy a physical CD, they'd have gotten zero money. So if they got 3 cents, that's still 100% more than they would have gotten if they were waiting for me to buy their CD. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I totally understand that point because I mean, streaming music and the internet is a wonderful thing. Like people shit on it, like oh it's evil, it's ruining music. Well, here's the thing. While it's a pain in the ass sometimes that, you can find all these bands and nothing's really like, oh, yeah, underground anymore or whatever. The thing is the internet is a wonderful wealth of information, and you can find bands from the 80s nobody remembers. You can find bands now nobody knows about, and it's just made it so much easier to do that. Before, like anything that wasn't really mainstream, books, movies, television, what have you, you had to actually work really hard for it, and it made it to where even though you had to search for it, you still could only find what was, kind of like the top of it. Here, now, you could hit a button, and there you go. There's new stuff on YouTube. And then on YouTube, you see, recommended videos. Oh, I've never heard of that band. And it can keep going. I mean, that's the cool thing about it is that you can find so many different bands. You can become a fan of so many different bands, or you could just become a fan of one band and listen to everything they have in one night. That's cool. But on the other hand, I really do still love CDs, but I'll go to a quote my friend made the other day. We were talking about a guy we both know. He's like a big metalhead in Chicago, in Illinois. He's talking about, just got a new CD player, fun technology. And he was like, I can respect his love for CDs, but isn't it really fucking stupid that you have to carry all these CDs around and you can just have all the CDs in your damn pocket and more? I'm like, I mean, that's kind of a thing. Like, I have, 200-something CDs. And, I love my CD collection, and it's a great little thing to look at, and I love listening, being able to put stuff in my car, and it's a lot easier to listen to stuff in my car. But there's a certain point where I'm like, damn, I wish I had an MP3 player that I could plug up to this because it would be much more convenient. So, there's a thing, really, I don't see this as just a one-off thing. It's just going to get even bigger as more people can get Spotify. It becomes even more prevalent. And I see it taking over because the thing about the music industry is oftentimes the most convenient and useful thing becomes the norm. Vinyl's the only thing that's really survived the years. Everything else, like tapes, CDs, DVDs, all these things like media, what's the easiest to get, what's the easiest to use, and the most convenient is what's gonna work in the long run and what's gonna survive. So I don't see streaming media going anywhere. And also, I can see it getting better for bands because as these revenues probably can get bigger and better, you'll also probably see, maybe some tour sales going up. Hey, for example, Sabaton and Nightwish, those tickets are fucking expensive, at least for me. Like $45 or something with fucking processing fee. Fuck you, Live Nation. I'm shaking my fist right now. But yeah, I could see it trickling down in a way. It's just like the music industry's different now. I'm not going to say it's worse. It's just different. We don't have to worry about record executives and stuff like that. You can have a lot more people doing their own thing, releasing albums by themselves like they did in the old days. But now you can get the attention, you can get the promotion if the right person finds you. If the right YouTuber talks about your stuff, so now somebody with enough Twitter followers talks about you. But also, it makes it to where it's just a much more bloated sort of atmosphere. So. It's kind of weird because
I'm finding
it's good.
Books now. With the self-publishing industry sort of blossoming on Amazon, and Amazon now offering you Amazon Unlimited, which is essentially Spotify for books.
Mm-hmm.
Which there was another thing that was being advertised for a long time. It was a very similar thing. It was like you pay a flat fee, read all the books you want. Well, I wasn't reading a lot of books at that point, so I didn't sign up for that service. But then Amazon started offering their own, and since I'm already a huge customer of Amazon, and I had the Kindle app on my phone and everything, I was like, all right, let me give this a shot. And I started reading some of these, really, really short wrestling books, and they're good for me while I'm at work because I don't want to have to think long and hard about stuff, and and because I'm actually having to do work, I get constant interruptions. So, I'm looking for sort of, books for dummies. They kind of keep me from being bored at work, but nothing too taxing on the old noodle. And what I'm finding is that a lot of what's available for Amazon Unlimited is the self-published stuff. And I'll tell you, I've read one of them so far, Curtain Call, which was how whatever the thing that Shawn Michaels and all them did in the cage at Madison Square Garden, how that changed the business. I'm telling you, that book is 20 pages. It might as well have been someone's blog post. But it's ebook. It was self-published in Amazon. It was uploaded to Amazon as a book. I'm reading one about TNA now, and it's the same kind of quality where it's not edited very well. It comes across as basically someone, someone. It feels like someone at 411 wrote it. For those of you that don't know, 411mania.com, which has traditionally been a wrestling site. And that's their bread and butter, even though they have different zones now, of which Robert used to be a writer.
Yeah, and one day, like I said, once I finish school, I'll probably go back. So, really funny side note, I wrote a 20-something page paper before spring break. I finally got it back, and my teacher's like, comma splice, comma splice, comma splice, comma splice. I'm like, somebody on 411 made that joke once. I'm like, welcome to 411, home of run-on sentences and comma splices.
But just to get to the point, you have more access to media than there ever has been. But the quality is, at the very least, questionable.
It's something kind of weird. It's because everybody can do it now. Kind of like people who say they're photographers. I don't believe them half the time because everybody thinks they can do it with a little Photoshop and a camera phone. So, I mean, it's got it to where the point where if you're good, you will get noticed. I mean,
Sure.
usually. Okay, there's a few that fall through the cracks, but it's much easier to get noticed. But it's also much harder for people to really take you seriously because everybody thinks that they're the best, and they just release stuff. I mean, shit, podcasts are the same way. I mean,
No, absolutely.
There are tons of, like, shitty podcasts that, people will be like, oh, this looks good, listen to it, don't listen to it again. Maybe it's the last podcast I listened to. It's stuff like that. So I think physical media, that's not going to go away. I mean, hell, I still go to buy CDs all the time. But streaming media is much more convenient. Like, you remember those top 50 lists I used to write? Yeah. If it went on Spotify, I didn't listen to it. So.
All right. So switching gears here, I just wanted to share that article. I thought it was interesting. Tonight we're reviewing Norwegian black metal band Enslaved, their latest album, In Times. Now, I've been setting the agenda for what seems like months now, basically because, Robert had to take some time off, and then at the start of the year there were a bunch of albums that I thought we needed to get into, or there were some bands that I wanted to do reviews for. So this one, I kind of ran out of stuff to do. I ran out of albums I wanted to talk about. So I finally said, "Hey, co-host, do you want to pick an album?" So I let Robert out of his tower, and said, "Go ahead and pick something." And this is what you picked, Robert. So why don't you give us a bit of an introduction here to this band? What are they all about? What's so special about them? Why this particular band, this particular album? Why are you putting me through this? What's going on here?
Well, actually, Enslaved are a band I heard a whole lot about for a long while. Like, black metal is one of those things I really like, but I have to be in the mood to listen to it because it is very, a lot, like, there's some really good special albums, but a lot of it's just kind of like, yeah, I like it. It's what it is. But Enslaved were a band that I'd heard about, and when I was doing, in 2012, when I started writing the Hammer of Doom news report, not the Metal Hammer of Doom, that's this. When I started writing that report and listening to all those albums, I noticed Enslaved had a new album out, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and give this a try. So I did. It's called Ritiir, which is R-I-I-T-I-I-R. And I was like, okay. I loved it. It was really good. It's exactly what I had assumed that they were, because I'd heard they're like a black metal band, but they're very progressive in nature. So that's what really got me excited, because black metal is not exactly a very progressive genre. There's my favorite type of black metal is like folk black metal, so mix folk music with it, like Throssumblot, which we'll be listening to, reviewing sometime this year when they release it, woot, because I did agree to review Limp Bizkit. But, yeah, I'm dreading that. But, yeah, like progressive music is something that usually goes with black metal, which is usually very raw, very dissonant, very, in your face. And this here, Enslaved, they're not like that. I like what Mark described them on Facebook. It's like Mayhem meets the Smiths. I would say that I thought that was pretty good, because, I mean, that's what they are. They started out as kind of just a Viking black metal band, like Bathory or something like that. I've actually got a split album over here. It's actually Emperor and Enslaved, and it's really good. But it kind of shows where we came from then to now, because then they had little tinges of progressive music, but they were still very much kind of like a solid black metal band. They were great. They're one of those bands that were, considered like top tier. But then they started to branch out to like the more progressive music, and that's where we get stuff like Ritiir and, In Times. And when I was looking for something to review, I was like, nothing was really catching me until I was like, oh, dude, Enslaved. And unfortunately, Enslaved didn't come out until recently, so that's why we did covers last week, and I love doing covers podcasts. So, I was like, okay, Enslaved. I figured it would be enough of it to where you wouldn't be like, black metal, just like, damn kids and their black metal, shaking your cane, dropping your teeth out of your mouth, all that stuff. Because they have enough to them to where it kind of cuts through it, to where it's very accessible, but it also shows you what they do, which is really impressive, because black metal usually doesn't do that. It's usually I think it's one of the more divisive genres of metal. You know, you either like it or you hate it. There's not many people that are like, it's okay. So I do find a lot of Mayhem fans, like random people. Like I have my denim jacket that I wear until it hits about 70 because I'm the man. I have like a Mayhem button, and random people will be like, dude, I love Mayhem. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, I don't really listen to black metal, but I love Mayhem, which always strikes me as odd. But yeah, Enslaved, they're a really good band. They're really unique in the genre. And hey, they had a new album coming out, and I figured, why not get my, yearly black metal podcast out of the way?
Rob's one pick for the year, and then you have to go back into your tower. I
bundle. Let down your long beard.
That's absolutely true. I was not, when you said you wanted to do a black metal album, obviously, I agreed to it, but I was not tremendously excited about it. And then I'm listening to the album, and it just starts, and we're going to play the first track in just a minute. But it starts off as black metal does, screaming unintelligibly, and I really did have one of the. And for a guy who likes black metal, I'm certainly no stranger to the genre. For a guy that likes black metal, and I just had this reaction to it, like, oh God, I can't, not a whole show of this. No, please no. And then as the song, and these are long songs. These are like typo negative length.
Every song is 8 minutes long, literally.
As the song started to go forward, I heard this voice, and it absolutely sounded like Morrissey, especially like the first track or two. It was like, stop me, oh, stop me, like, oh, shit. And it's just got a very, very pretty melodic male voice, and the music itself got very progressive, and then it would alternate back and forth. I'm like, okay, this I can handle. This I'm enjoying. And then I realized I was a 90-year-old fan. I'll tell the story really quick, and then I really do got to play the first track and get on with it. But I remember, I brought, I want to say it was not Blind Guardian, but who's almost like the parody metal act? God.
Parody metal act.
Parody metal act. Yeah.
You said power metal or parody?
Huh?
You say power metal or parody metal?
No, they're a power metal band, but they're almost like a parody of metal. It's something something gold. Anyway, I brought like one of their earlier albums with me to class one day. It was when I was in grad school, and I'm playing the song, and then, the rest of metal, they have nice voices, and they're not the heavy. Sometimes these are not the heaviest songs in the world. And this older woman, she's like, "Oh my God, I can't handle this. Please turn this off." And comes over and turns off my radio. And I was like, "Oh, you bitch, you can't handle anything. I'll throw you out a window." And I have become that woman. So with that being said, here he is. This is our. I'll let you introduce it. What's this track called?
Okay, give me a second here. By the way, so would you say that you have become a grandma?
Yes, I have become grandma.
Which, by the way, King Diamond is one of the top 2 acts for this year's Mayhem Festival.
Allegedly, they haven't formally announced it yet. They said that that's the leaked lineup, but that could change. That could be maybe that could be a red herring. But if that's the case, if it's King Diamond and Slayer, I told my wife we're going, and she has to put up with it.
I'm going to try to go if it's King Diamond and Slayer. But all the other bands kind of suck, unfortunately.
You should come down here to Tampa and go with me. That way I don't have to drag my wife.
Just drag me along. Or really, I'll drag you along. Okay, so the first song here off of End Times, it is 8 fucking minutes long. I wasn't kidding when I said every song is 8 minutes long, because it is. It's called Thursa's Dreaming. I'll read some of the lyrics. I'll kind of be reading the lyrics as the song is playing, and then I'll try to give you the best poetic interpretation I can give you. So, here we are. First song off the new Enslaved album, Thursa's Dreaming. Play it away.
so you get the idea. All right, Robert, what's it all about?
Well, funny thing, I looked up what thursize was because I was like, hey, that sounds Norse in nature. And what is it? It's actually a rune, a Norse rune, which I thought was really interesting. It's a lot different than I was expecting. I expected it to be some fucking obscure Norse god that I've never heard of. But apparently it means Thor as is, and it also stands for giants. But looking at looking at all the lyrics and stuff, I'm like, fuck, this is gonna take a while. Because it's talking about like circulating high above the earth, draw a letter through a sphere, forget the yearnings and left myself. How fuck that? It's actually really hard to analyze, but I will say, well, I can't say much about the lyrics at this point because, oh boy, I mean, it's a very epic poem. The song itself does a really good job of kind of throwing the listeners through a loop, as Mark kind of alluded to here. The way it was, because, it starts out very traditional black metal, which made me happy, because I'm like, oh boy. I'm like, Mark is like, oh no. I'm like, oh boy, black metal. But then I was waiting for it to turn, because this is like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Not in that it's bad, but that like, the twist is coming. And then when it hit, I was like, oh, it's so pretty. Like, it's funny because they have a very nice mix. The same way it works in metalcore. I can't believe I just put Enslaved and metalcore in the same, sentence. But it works because it has...
Do you need a minute?
What?
Do you need a minute?
Nah, I think I'll survive. I think I'll just trudge through this blasphemy. It works in the same style that it has a very, very harsh tones to it and is very abrasive to the ears. But then it kind of sweetens it up with the clean vocals. But I do want to say this is not core music, because that same guy who was talking about buying a CD player was bitching about the last Enslaved album. He goes, I think it's like black core because it has clean singing in it. And everybody's like, no, dude. Just because it has clean singing in the same song as it has, screaming and blast beats doesn't mean that it's a core song. I mean, that's an entire style that goes with it. This is really just progressive in nature, and actually a few reviews that I read of this compared some of these sections to straight up rock music, which I think that's cool. I think it's really cool when a black metal band can have rock and roll influences, because those two they're similar, but I'll almost never find the two roads to cross. Rock and roll and black metal are both different. Even though they do sometimes have a lot of killing and cocaine. But yeah, what do you think of this song?
Well, like I said, the yelling and screaming at the start of it, I'm like, well, this is typical. I honestly didn't have much more of a reaction than that. But then once the clean vocals started, I really got into it, and I was enjoying it. I'll tell you, we're going to move on to track 2 here in just a second, but this is one of those rare albums where the 8 minutes went by really fast and I didn't feel like 8 minutes. Sometimes you hear a song and you're just like, oh, God, please get this over with. It's just going on forever. I know everyone loves Opeth and the very mention of their name and anything negative and people are going to firebomb my house, but I found Opeth's music just to be a bit long in the tooth. This I actually felt the music moving very swiftly, and the 8 minutes didn't feel like 8 minutes. Let's go on to track 2 here. This is go ahead, make your point, and then let's go to the next one.
I was going to say I really do love Opeth, but there's a certain point where I find 8 to 10 minute songs to be almost not what I'm looking for. It's why I sometimes love to listen to bands like Toxic Holocaust or Speed Wolf in the car, because they're fast and the songs are over quick and you just kind of get to move on from place to place to place, and you kind of feel like you're going somewhere. I think the reason why this works so well, whereas Opeth, their transitions from parts to a song are very slow. They kind of dwell on parts for a while, and I feel like with this Enslaved album, while they take sometimes to move along, it almost feels like a totally different song to a certain point. But there's enough elements of the previous movement to work. So I think that's probably why I was been listening to this album, and I'm just like, 8 minutes really doesn't feel that long, which is impressive because I can usually tell how long a song goes. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Okay.
Yep.
By the way, the album I was referring to when I was talking about grad school, the band rather was Dream Evil.
Oh, Dream Evil. Okay, yeah, they're named after that Dio album. I would have never gotten them.
especially when I'm going with the word gold. But all right, this is track 2. This is Building with Fire. I can totally see, spinning around at the club and doing wavy hands and just getting all new waved out to that song. It's so perfect. It has that absolutely perfect blend of 80s alt rock, new wave, combined with the harshness of black metal. That's probably my favorite song on this whole album.
Yeah, it'll definitely blow your pants off. That's what I'm finding with this album, is that there's so many different things. Like, I kind of just want to listen to this album a whole ton in the car for the next 2 weeks, which is usually what I do when I really, really start to love an album. I'll just listen to it on repeat until I get tired of it. And this album seems to be one of those, I think you could really pull that off and not really get bored because there's so many different movements and so many pieces of tracks here. Like, I feel like it's a journey. It really is. Like, you know, it's the band taking you on this musical journey that even if you don't know what they're saying at all times, because, well, black metal screaming can be a little hard for some people to decipher. Though I once told a kid that was like, I don't know how you listen to that, because he posted some, like, Twista song, and I'm like, well, you know what else is hard to understand? And I posted it by Dismember song. And I'm like, yeah, your guy's rapping really fast, and I guess he's really interesting, but my guy's grunting like an animal. Though I can't understand what he was saying. But that's not the point. Like, you know, it doesn't really necessarily matter what they're saying, even though it's really great. Like, this band is just kind of taking you on, like, a magic carpet ride. Like, I could fucking listen to this for a long, long time, and I would not complain. Like, yeah, I like what you said. There's a lot of alternative, like, influences. There's rock influences. There's, of course, tons of black metal. And there's great solos. And, you know, it's just a really good song.
That's absolutely a great song. Let's go on to track 3 here. Let's go ahead and introduce it. This is the song is called 1,000 Years of Rain. But talk to us about what's going on with it.
Ooh. Let's see. There's sections in Norwegian here, because I'm reading the lyrics as I'm talking. Yeah. I don't know.
Let me go ahead.
Let me
go ahead and play it.
Okay.
Let me go ahead. This is 1,000 Years of Rain. I'll play a little bit, and then you can come and talk to me about it.
Okay.
talk to me?
Well, first, I must say, I think your Facebook is very active right now.
Oh, you can hear it?
Yeah, you can hear the messages popping up. But,
yeah, sorry. Sean keeps sending me messages.
It's cool. I was just like, and I'm like, oh, okay. But I
don't know if you listen to the Casual Heroes, but I have to keep Facebook off now during that, because I'll start getting messages during that show, and Jed, who of course is very sensitive to any kind of exterior sound, goes insane and starts yelling at people. So I just don't even keep it on anymore.
Yeah, it happens. But I gotta say, I was once on Sean Gromer's wrestling podcast, and speaking of sensitive, this one guy on there, I think we all disagreed with him on something. He's just like, and I made a joke, and he's like, "Oh, everybody's fucking attacking me. Fuck you guys. You guys are a piece of shit," and just left. We're like, okay, somebody's butt hurt. But anyways, this song, I gotta say, like, before I get in the lyrics, damn, some of the songs just feel straight up classical in nature. I love that. But lyrically, there's certain themes in it. One that I really love is that the son is dying and the mother is crying, but it's not the son O-N, it's the son U-N. I'm almost looking at this song like the clouds are coming over the sun, and that's what it's talking about, the 1,000 years of rain, and it's coming to like kind of wash away like civilization of sorts, because it's talking about how legends are built with blood and sword and stuff like that. But towards the end, it seems like they're talking about that civilization kind of being washed away as the sun is kind of getting covered up by all these clouds. I don't know. The way I looked at it, it's really interesting. You wouldn't think that a black metal band would have lyrics that are just so intriguing. I don't know. I feel like I watched that history show Vikings. Even though my mom's like, the Vikings weren't like that. Yeah, Viking things are always...
First-hand knowledge? Is that what she's been around a lot of Vikings in her life? You ever been to a Viking funeral?
We were discussing that at work. Somebody's like, yeah, my daughter said, like, when she dies, give her a Viking funeral, even if that's illegal in North and South Carolina. I'm like, go somewhere really Viking-y, like Sweden. That'll be okay, I'm sure. You just gotta find somebody that's really good with a flaming arrow.
All right. Let's go to track 4. Let's move on to track 4 here. Now, I'm letting you do the heavy lifting on this show, since you picked the band here. You get to introduce this song and then tell me to hit it.
Okay, so I can tell you to hit it or quit it. Anyways, this song right here.
Get on with it.
Oh, hush you. So, this song right here is the fourth song on this album. It's called Now Fear Bleeding.
Very good. Very good. You, unlike Chris Evans, appear to be able to read English. All right. Nature Bleeding, or whatever it's called. Talk to me about it.
Nature Bleeding. Not quite. Not quite. It's Nauthier. I don't even know what Nauthier is. So I'm really lucky I can pronounce that, because sometimes I get in a little bit of trouble when we get to Norwegian things. I'm much better when we get to Asian. But anyways, so this song, reading the lyrics to it, it almost seems like a divorce song. It really does feel like a divorce song with those lyrics.
So it's like Napier, or however you pronounce it, like Norwegian for wallet. Get it? Wallet bleeding. Yeah. Because you see, when you get a divorce, you lose a lot of money. Get it?
Yeah, that's why you get a prenup, because 18 years, find out the 18th birthday and you find out it wasn't yours. Sorry, had to reference Kanye West's Gold Digger here. But yeah, I'm sure it's talking about what happens when...
I think I watched the Honest trailer from the Screen Junkie. They did one for Cinderella, and at the end they were like, story. They showed a picture of Cinderella, and next to her head they wrote, "I'm not saying she's a gold digger."
That's great. Cinderella. A buddy of mine went to see that. He goes, "Yep, it was a live action version of the original." The Disney version, the animated. I'm like, oh, good.
And you can hear Robert Winfrey and I review that last week right here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. That show's in the archives for you to listen to. Our Cinderella 2015 live action review.
Yeah, seriously, go listen to it. I was looking at the stats for the listens lately. Holy shit, where did everybody go? Like everybody used to pull at least 150. Damn. Now it's like, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's just less people are listening to us, which is certainly possible, or Blog Talk Radio occasionally changes the way they count things. Like, I remember one of my very, very, very first shows had 1,000 listens. I'm like, that can't possibly be right. No one knows who I am, and it's one of the very first shows. There's no fucking way I had that many people listening.
Yeah, just weird. And I was like, huh. I don't know. Blog Talk's an asshole. I'll say that. An asshole. Every time you put me and Jesse together to talk about the library, they cut off. There's no support for the local library. Yeah, this song, it almost feels like a divorce. It keeps talking about, one of my favorite things is talking about, holding the stillborn body, caressing it as it eats away at my flesh. And I'm like, Because it's talking about stuff like loneliness and, no reason to be together. And I'm like, divorce. Maybe. I don't know. I just kind of thought that was an interesting idea. A nice interpretation. The song itself, very, very adventurous. I like it. It kind of goes from place to place. I mean, there are certain times I'm like, that sounds like a Mayhem song, kind of in reference to black metal. Other times I'm like, this kind of reminds me of a Nirvana song. I mean, there are certain times in this album where I'm like, I could see this passage being played on the rock radio and people being like, yeah, man, it's pretty good shit. It's just one of those albums that I feel like it works that way. And it's really nice. But anyways, yeah, what'd you think about it?
I really liked it. I think I liked, like I said, the early songs a little bit better, but this one wasn't bad. All right. Let's move on to track 5 here as we start to wind down the show. This is a title track, the longest song on the. It's 6 tracks, but when they're almost 10 minutes apiece, can you call this an EP? I don't think this. I think this still qualifies as a full play album, even though it's only 6 songs.
Maybe. I'll consider it.
Right. I'll consider it. It's up for advising. All right. Here it is. This is In Times, track 5. that's the title track.
Yeah, they had a really nice way on this track of kind of fitting in, like, in time, like, the way that the song is named. Usually they'll just be like, oh, yeah, you know, kind of shoehorn the title in there, like a lot of bands do. No, the way they do it is they have in and then side the out and then inside times, and it just kind of repeats that over and over. The band does a really good job of that. They do a great job of having certain themes in a song and then kind of twisting and revisiting them as the song goes on, which is something I absolutely love in poetry. Hell, when I write poetry, that's kind of what I try to do. You know, you take a concept, and then as you go deeper into that song, you kind of revisit that concept but show how it's changing as the song goes along. I think it has a really nice way of showing the reader, you know, kind of what's going on in the song, or at least give them something to interpret for the poem. You know, it always fascinates me. I love poetry. I like writing poetry. It's fun.
I want you to know that there's nothing wrong with writing poetry as a man, and you shouldn't be offended by what I'm about to say. But as soon as you said I write poetry, the first thing I thought of, he's a fucking art fag.
He's a fucking art fag. That's great.
You know the song, Art Fag by Anal Cunt?
No, see, I don't really listen to much Anal Cunt because while I find them funny for about 2 seconds.
Wait a minute, you've never heard Art Fag by Anal Cunt?
No, I usually find Seth Putnam to be kind of a racist asshole. And while he's dead, God rest his soul in hell. Yeah, I mean, it's not really...
I don't have the energy for this. I know this is the part of the show where I just start randomly uploading tracks for you to listen to and distract from the central topic, but I just don't have it in me tonight. So your homework assignment when the show is over is to go on YouTube and look up Art Fag by Anal Cunt and have yourself a laugh.
It's an Anal Cunt song, so I'm pretty sure it'll be like 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's not long. But I'll tell you, my friends and I back in high school were obsessed with this song. Okay?
That's pretty great.
He's got a roller coaster haircut, does it jet black, but his hair is really brown, just like his mustache.
That's pretty good. That's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, hey, my mustache is brown. But
we listened to that song and we would laugh our ass off at it, and like, you know, my friends had a propensity for, you know, public silliness and being loud. And I remember we walked into, like, the Applebee's near, you know, like, this was the Applebee's near where we all lived, so we would go there frequently to eat when we had cars back in high school. And we walk in, and, you know, this particular Applebee's, I don't know if they all do this, but this particular Applebee's had, like, a totem pole, and somebody goes, he's got a mustache underneath his loincloth.
See, I just kind of got, and I was like, I'm glad jazz faggots don't like us anymore. You know, like I said, Seth Putnam's a racist asshole, but I oftentimes find, like, a lot of his songs, just the song titles alone, to be absolutely humorous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting next week on the Metal Hammer of Doom we're going to do a retrospective of Anal Cunt. I'm not suggesting that. I don't
know if that title can get past, like, the censors anyways.
I am suggesting that Art Fag is a very funny song.
Yeah.
And at one point he goes, and he writes poetry is one of the lyrics.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, the true story, I do have, like, something I wrote in the class once, pretty much, like, laminated and framed on a board in one of the halls of my school. Which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, it's all about all social justice and stuff. America. Yeah, because I like poetry and stuff. Yeah, I'll listen to that song once the last song comes on. But yeah, this song right here, it's great. I mean, the same things we've been saying about the music. It still works. It still has really nice, like, turns of black metal and, like, kind of almost progressive music and a little bit of splashes of rock and even alternative. You know, this is like a really good burrito, wouldn't you say? Like, you know, when you get a really good burrito, like from Chipotle or something, where they, like, mix everything up. And, like, you know, each bite, you're like, oh, you know, I can taste the main flavor, but, ooh, I get a little bit of splash of this. And then, like, the next bite's like, ooh, I get some of that. Like
what would you say about some of the criticisms of this album where they, you know, in earlier albums they sort of stretched and experimented and they found a niche and they're now safely within that niche and they're not necessarily experimenting anymore? Some of the, like I liked it, but I have nothing to compare it to in terms of other albums this band's put out. Some of the criticisms of it is this is now more of the same, and they're not particularly daring on this album.
Well, I mean, I don't have a whole ton of, you know, other things compared to. I have about one album and a half of an EP, or half of a single. And, well, I mean, sometimes you have those sort of complaints. There are bands, like progressive bands, like, you know, there's Dream Theater albums where they're just like, like, oh, look, they're doing that same thing they did again. Because, you know, sometimes you have a band that's really crazy and avant-garde or something, but then that becomes a thing, and they're not really avant-garde anymore. They're just them. I find this album to work, though, because they still manage to find ways to kind of surprise you. Like, yeah, even if you know what's coming, they do a nice job of always kind of leaving you on your edge about, okay, so, you know, what are they going to do next? When are they going to do it? Because there's a lot of really kind of jarring and abrupt, like, switches in sound on this album, and I feel like that's really nice. Like, you know, first time listener to the band, you'll be like, holy shit. And even though even if you're like a devout fan, I think still you'll be, I think most people will be off really, like, nicely surprised by it. But, I mean, hey, some people, if you don't think they're daring enough, well, I don't know, they got older albums. I mean, yeah, you can't please, I don't think there's one album that, like, pleases everybody. Somebody's got to shit on something. And I'm not saying that the people who are complaining, you know, don't have merit, because I'm sure they do, but I don't know, I think this album works perfectly.
All right, this is our last track here. This is track number 6. This is Daylight by Enslaved. Good strong finish there. I liked it.
Yeah, like that's. I would say that this song kind of encapsulates what a lot of like the Metal Archives reviews that I read on it say. It's very kind of spacey, like it's very astral in nature. Like a lot of the songs kind of have sort of a ethereal quality to them. Like they're very kind of distant, out there, and quiet, like crazy. And I think this song, it does the best job of really bringing out those qualities. And I mean, hey, it does a great job. And there's just a lot of really, really nice things this song does. Like that closing solo is like, I salute that shit. It's really well done.
Yep, I agree. So overall, how would you rate this album?
I'm giving it a solid 5 stars. I think so. I mean, it's very rare that I do that, but I think it's just one of these albums, like, maybe in a few years I'll listen to it again and maybe it'll knock it down like half a star, but this is one of those like album of the year contenders, like automatically. Everything's just done so well. The lyrics are interesting. The music is, I would almost say, auditorily challenging. It's almost challenging for you to kind of keep up with it in a way that, you aren't surprised. And it does a very good job. I like it. I like what they do with it.
For me,
the singing.
I think for me, this is one of those albums where I could definitely hear it in the background. If I'm in the house and I'm cleaning, picking up, cleaning, and I'm trying to, and I want to listen to something, or I'm driving, and I don't want to hear necessarily a variety of music. I want to hear an album straight through. I think this would be the album that I would pick. It's definitely, it's one of those experiential albums. I think it's not I wouldn't want to break it apart. I think more so than some of the albums that really try to do this. This came across as one single piece that you should listen to from front to back, and not one the big break up and throw one track into a mix or something like that.
I could see that. I mean, I could listen to this album in pieces. I think each song works well as their own separate entity. But as a concept, I think as a concept album as a whole, it would work really well like that. Because there's some albums breaking it up would be a sin. It just would be. Even though Nightfall and Middle Earth by Blind Guardian, doing those there's a few Mirror Mirror is an amazing song, but the whole album is album as a whole, you got to listen to the whole thing. I could totally see this album being one of those. And it would work really well with background music because it's one of those, kind of like when I was writing my paper, I put on literally every Castlevania soundtrack I could find because I've kind of figured out video game music, you're almost programmed to not pay too much attention to it. It's really nice with background music, and you'll occasionally pop in when you're oh, that's really nice, I like that song. But you're never so engrossed in it that you can't do something while you're doing it. And I could totally see this album being like that. But though I could also see it working you are so engrossed because it is a very interesting album. So it's one of those it's just a great album.
All right, so that's the end of this show. Now, in 2 weeks, we'll be reviewing the new Nightwish album. It comes out this Tuesday here in America. It's already out in other parts of the world. But if you're looking to get it on Spotify in the U.S., you have to wait till March 31st, 2 days after WrestleMania 31, everyone. After Brock Lesnar retains against Roman Reigns. That's my prediction.
Will Roman look strong?
And if you'd like to hear more of my predictions, check out thecasualheroes.com and listen to our latest WrestleCast where we break down WrestleMania, among other things. We'll be doing Nightwish in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks after that, the new Prong covers album, and we'll see where we are. Hey, hopefully maybe by then the new Limp Bizkit will be out. In any case, some other stuff we've got coming up on the Rattlers and Broadcasting Network. Next Wednesday, April 1st, the day after the new Nightwish comes out, will be the Long Road to Ruin with myself, Sean Comer, and Benjamin Colon, a special Wednesday edition of the show, since I will be at NXT on Thursday here in Tampa. So we'll be doing the show 1 day earlier, April 1st, and we'll be looking at all 4 of the Crow movies. Benjamin Colon is very excited about this. The week after that, in fact, exactly 1 week after that, Robert Winfrey and I will be reviewing the new Furious 7 movie, the latest in the Fast and the Furious franchise, featuring Vin Diesel, the late Paul Walker, Michelle Rodriguez, and newcomer to the franchise, Ronda Rousey, all 16-second armbar of her. So that'll be then, and then the day after that, on the 9th, will be, once again, the male Hammer of Doom, reviewing the new Nightwish. So that's what's coming up. Every week, I'm on the casualheroes.com WrestleCast, and you can check out the rest of our shows right here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. Got a lot of great shows. Robert's going to tell you about some of them right now. Robert, what do you got going on?
Oh, boy. Back to you, Cotton. So, yeah. Radulich Broadcasting Network, I like it. From Cheap Seats, Jesse Starcher, Jason Teasley, those guys, love them. Usually, like, Tuesday, Wednesday night, 10 o'clock. Probably Tuesday nights in the next few weeks. But, yeah, they talk sports. I like it. They're nice. They're nice guys. They're fun. Anti-Writer Podcast. We'll be doing that sooner or later. That's the last time we went to record a podcast. We just shot the shit for 3 hours.
Okay.
You do not know how many podcasts that we've sat down to do that instead of doing the podcast, we just shot the shit for 3 hours. And then I'll be like, all right, man, we should really do this podcast. He's like, yeah, you're right. And then I'll like go on something. I'm like, but first, blah, 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 tangent. So
we have the exact opposite problem with Casual Heroes. Like, I'm completely impatient and always like pushing them to like start recording. Like, I'm kind of a jerk about it. I have no patience.
Like, we need that third person, really, because me and Hunter always do that. We always go off on a tangent. But you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Sentai Podcast. It is SENTAIRDER Podcast. We talk to Tokusatsu, so Power Rangers, Kamen Rider, Super Sentai. Maybe we'll do a Godzilla movie one day. I don't fucking know. But yeah, that's a thing. The other podcast I'm involved with every week is the Cooperative Multiplayer Podcast, the official 411 Game Zone podcast. It's on Spreaker.com/co-op multi. It's Sean Garner, Mark Morrison, and myself. So I have missed like on and off the past few weeks because, like, I don't know. Let's see. 1 week I got stood up on a date for Valentine's Day and was very miserable and didn't want to talk about video games. And let's see. One after that was a paper. Work, paper, like it's just always something. So I've not really had much time, but I'll be on there. I think probably be on there this week. We're usually on Saturdays at midnight. Yeah, Saturday going into Sunday. So give us a listen. We talk video games. Pretty great. If you really love hearing me go random and make really mean jokes about things, that's your place. So yeah, that's all for me.
All right. So we'll see you here in 2 weeks, like I said, April 8th, right here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. That's RADULICH. Put it in the Google machine. You'll find everything you need to find about the network. And once again, check me out every week on thecasualheroes.com with Gavin Napier, Chris Evans, and the one and only Jed, who's on his own podcast called General Depravity. If you look up General Depravity in Google, you'll find his podcast. And then you will need to take a cold shower. So with that said, here it is, folks.
I was about to say, if you Google General Depravity, I don't think you'll find this podcast. I think you'll need like a lot of cold like shower, like drink a whole lot of water after a lot of pills to bleach your mind. But anyway.
All right, the one and only Robert Cooper. I am the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified. Be well, be safe, and behave.